right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all very much for being here today. I am so excited for this workshop. So welcome to the Overcoming Overwhelm workshop. I am your coach, Laura McCaffrey, and my pronouns are she and her. And like I said, I'm so excited to be here with you today. So before we dive in, I'd like to start off with a land acknowledgement. I live and coach from the land of the indigenous American people, and I wanted to take a moment to honor their stewardship of the land. All right, so you are in the right place for the class today if you've ever experienced overwhelm and you want a way out of it, which is totally all of us, right? Because we all have human brains. And the good news is that I created this workshop just for you, so I got you. So in this workshop, we're going to talk about how to acknowledge and process our feelings of overwhelm, how to work with our thoughts, like not use our thoughts against us, how to make strong decisions, and how to take action to move forward. And as you can see, I'm not going to be using slides for this class. So if you have any questions at all as we go along, you can drop them into the chat and I'll try to peek over at the chat as I'm looking at my notes and I'll answer them as I go. Also, at the end of the workshop, I'm going to open it up to anyone who wants to be coached on their specific experience with overwhelm. So this is a really great opportunity to try out coaching if you've never been coached before. And just listening to someone else get coached can be really powerful, like just as powerful as getting coached yourself. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Laura. By degree, I'm a mechanical engineer. I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree in engineering, and I've been working in the field of engineering for over 20 years. So in addition to my engineering work, I'm also a PhD candidate at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, and my research revolves around how women leaders lead in male-dominated fields and how they construct their gender and identity, and how that then impacts their use of intuition and embodiment as leadership tools. I'm also a certified life coach, and I've been doing coaching with both men and women in corporate and private settings since 2013. And I can tell you that all of the people that I've ever worked with or coached at some point or another have dealt with overwhelm. So what is overwhelm? Like, we think that our workload or having a social life on top of a demanding job, family responsibilities, health goals, romantic relationships, friends, like all of this stuff is what makes us overwhelmed. And then like throw on top of it the events happening in the world, the things that are somewhat out of our control. Like we just can be completely overwhelmed all the time, right? And when we think about all this stuff, we think about our to-do list, it can really make you want to curl up and cry in your bed or just nap. So what your thoughts are in this case are like, I have too much work to do. There's no way I could get it all done today, or I don't have enough time. And I just have a little bit of a secret. It's not all the stuff that causes the overwhelm. It's actually what you're thinking about all the stuff that causes the overwhelm. The thought, I don't have enough time to get this all done, is what causes that anxiety. And what do you do when you feel anxious? Like you totally run around with the chicken with your head cut off, or do you freeze, or do you catastrophize the situation? I think we all realize that like none of those things help us actually get the work done or make the changes that we want to make. So the key to figuring out our overwhelm is to figure out the thoughts we're thinking when we feel overwhelmed. So just let me offer also that when you feel overwhelmed, nothing has gone wrong. Like we all have these human brains. So just breathe into it. You have a human brain, and our human brain likes to offer us these thoughts that create overwhelm because it's the brain's job to keep us safe and also like use as little energy as possible. And if you actually went and did some of that stuff on your to-do list or goals list, you would definitely expend energy. You would face other scary feelings like fear or doubt or disappointment because you might be doing things that you've never done before. And you'll probably create change, right? And change is like super scary to our brains. It's like unknown territory. So our brain likes to offer us this overwhelm so that way we don't have to face any of that other stuff. But it also keeps us from creating the results that we want in our life. So before we dive into the thought work and actually working with the thoughts, we just need to acknowledge and sit with what is. And most people totally want to skip over this part. Like allowing our feelings is hard and it feels super inconvenient. But in order for us to be effective, we actually have to feel and process our feelings. But we never get taught how to do this, right? So I have some tools to help you. The good news is that using these tools, like the feelings aren't going to be as bad as we think they are. And they actually pass a lot quicker when we're not resisting the feeling. feelings are just a physical sensation in your body. So some examples of feelings are like happy, calm, confident, sad, afraid, ashamed, angry, anxiety, love, hopeless, and overwhelmed, which is what we'll be working with today. So generally a feeling is just one word or sentence describing a physical sensation in your body. So when a strong emotion comes up, pause to be present with that physical sensation. You can name the emotion that you're having. Like it's important to say to yourself, okay, this is overwhelm. Next, what I like to do is identify where that overwhelm lives in my body. So generally my overwhelm tends to like live right here in my chest, like someone sitting on my chest or on my back, like severe pressure in my back. So just acknowledging where it is and what it feels like, where it lives in your body. Next, what you want to do is describe to yourself what it feels like. Does it have a temperature, a shape, a color, a texture? Like, is it warm? Is it kind of like rough? Is it kind of like shining out? What color is it? Is it red? Is it blue? And describe it to yourself and keep describing and noticing if it shifts at all, because that's ultimately what we're going for. Just acknowledging the feeling and kind of like letting it shift in our body. Any movement at all in the feeling is good. This really serves to calm the brain by letting it know that like you're in charge and you're paying attention to the message that your body is sending you. So just by doing this practice, just sitting with our feelings, we can start to allow the emotion and process it in our bodies. And you'll be surprised at how quickly the feeling that you're afraid of just totally passes through your body. Also, when I'm having some really intense feelings, I like to go to my toolbox of ways to self-soothe. Some examples of my favorites are like drinking a warm cup of coffee or tea, or just holding a warm cup, or touching soft fabrics, or washing my hands in cold water, smelling essential oils, like anything that you can use in your toolkit to help calm your senses, calm your nerves, calm your nervous system. So in the workbook that I sent out, there is a place for you to develop your own toolbox on page 7 of the workbook. Let me just see here. It looks like I might not be in kind of like presenter mode. Well, either way, it doesn't really matter. You don't need to look at me. You could just hear what I'm saying anyway. So like I said, you could develop your own toolbox for working through some of this work on page 7 of the workbook. Some of this stuff to work with your nervous system and help you calm yourself down. So after we work with the nervous system, next we get to work on our thoughts, right? We can't skip over the feelings part because the whole point is to feel our feelings. But we do need to question the thoughts that our brains are offering us, right? Because we know that our brains are offering us these feelings of and thoughts of overwhelm because it wants to keep us safe, but it is also keeping us from doing what we want to do. So when you feel overwhelmed, just notice your thoughts. Like, are you thinking, I don't know how to do this, or I don't have enough time, or this is never going to get done, or this is totally unreasonable? Your anxiety brain, like your primal brain, is not being rational. It's telling you that you don't have enough time. It's telling you that you don't know what to do. But it's like not, it's a thought error. It's not really doing the math correctly. Like the reality is that you have tools to figure things out and you do have kind of like all the time you need. Yeah, of course there's deadlines, but the time isn't as restricted as your brain is telling you it is. So we need to ask yourself, like, what else can you believe that would help you feel better in this situation? So some thoughts that I like to use are, I have all the time I need, or the work always gets done because it has to. The work will take whatever time it takes. Or when I calm down, I will realize that I have enough time. Or I always get my work done. Like I'm a person who always gets my work done. And I know how to plan to get things done. So it's common when we're trying to replace like those thoughts of overwhelm that we want to go for the opposite of the thought, but sometimes it's hard to believe that opposite thought yet. So come up with some replacement thoughts that feel good to you, even if they don't directly respond to whatever your specific initial thought is. And on pages 4 through 6 of your workbook, I've provided some exercises to help you identify the thoughts that feel real and true for you. This goes both for the initial, like, this is what I'm feeling when I'm overwhelmed and this is real right now. And then for the shift that you want to use with the coaching model to here's where I would like to be, to use my thoughts to help propel me forward. So let's work through one of these using the self-coaching model. So for those of you who haven't done a workshop with me, the model is a coaching tool provided by Brooke Castillo of the Life Coach School, and it just helps us have a way of working with our thoughts to achieve our desired results. So the model, of course, is not the only coaching tool out there, but I do find that this one is specifically useful for working with overwhelm. So the model says that when something happens or something exists out in the world, our brains like to come up with a thought about it. The thought is just a sentence in our brain. And that thought produces a feeling, which is a sensation in your body. And then from that feeling, we take action. We either do or we don't do something. And from the action, we produce a result. So walking through an example of a model using a thought that feels powerful, that, kind of like takes overwhelm off of the table, can go something like this. So the circumstance would be my to-do list. My thought would be, I always get my work done. My feeling would then be calm and confident. And then my actions, I could list out a whole bunch of actions here, right? It would be break down my work into steps, set myself up for success by pulling the materials I need, calendar my activities, and then stick to my calendar. And the result would be that I get the work done. So remember, our line, the result line in the model, always proves the thoughts that we were using to fuel our action. So to close the model out, the last step that we need to do is to make decisions and take action. So from a place of thinking these new powerful thoughts in your intentional model, those thoughts that will create the result that you want to revisit all of the things that you have on your plate, like those things that you thought were causing you overwhelm. So on page 8 of your workbook, there's some space to list out all of those things. So once you have your list, you can kind of start to realize how much agency and control you actually have over everything on your list. Like, is there anything on there that you really don't have to do? Anything that you've been procrastinating on or like avoiding making a decision on? Now is the time to make those decisions. When you're in the place of believing your powerful thoughts, seeing the result that's possible for you, now is the time to make the decision and commit to following through. So remember, you've made the choice that overwhelm is like no longer on the table. You're going to use a different fuel to create your results. And that's those thoughts that you've now listed, that you have kind of like a go-to list of things that can help you feel a different way and produce different results. So I did get a question on how to focus when you have all the things on your plate. And this is totally where planning comes in. So once you have the list of things that you're actually going to do, you have to make your plan. And you can break things down into bite-sized chunks and list the first few steps. And then once you do that, put all of that stuff on your calendar and decide that you are going to follow through. You're going to honor your calendar. Decide now to become the person, like to develop the self-concept of being someone who does what she says she's going to do when she says she's going to do it. And the reason we use the calendar to plan is because then you don't have to constantly worry about the 80 million other things on your to-do list when you're trying to focus on the one thing you said you were going to do. You know that everything is on your calendar with some time allotted to it. And of course, do whatever you need to set some boundaries for your focus time, like close doors, hire babysitters, turn off phones, whatever is available to you that will keep you in creation mode so that way you can get things done. And also remember, like, this is a practice. There is no failing or messing up. It's all just data on what worked and what didn't work that you'll then use in the next iteration to improve. Like, we're always learning to develop systems that work for us, and to do it deliberately in this fashion is extremely powerful, because if we're not deliberate about it, our brains will continue to offer us that overwhelm, and then we can end up in that cycle of just like having a ton on our plate, feeling completely overwhelmed, and like not being prepared to do what we really actually want to do and create what we want in the world. So that is really all the content I had for you today. I said I wanted to keep it short, so that way we can, have the opportunity to do some Q&A and do some live coaching. So I wanted to know, does anyone have any questions or anything specific that they would like to work through in their coaching model? If you have something, you can just unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hi.
Kathy. Hey.
How you doing?
Good. I always think about when I think about being overwhelmed, I think about that exact thing that you mentioned is procrastination.
Yeah.
I've been doing it forever. It's kind of like, it seems like a, what's the word? Sabotage myself.
Yeah.
Why do we procrastinate? I'm trying to figure out, leave it to the last minute and
Yeah.
worry.
I think that that's part of what our brains are offering us, right? Especially with this overwhelm. It's like, here, let yourself be overwhelmed so that way you don't have to face any of the hard stuff of like taking the action. And also with procrastination, I think there can be a little bit of like a self-concept thing going on there, where sometimes we believe that like we are procrastinators, like it becomes part of who we are, but that's never true. Like that's never actually part of who you are. That's just something you do. And if it's something you do, not part of who you are, that means that you can absolutely make a difference. And also, I know that, like, for me at least, sometimes I tell myself, oh, but I produce my best results when I wait till the last minute and I'm under a lot of pressure. And I think the reality is that we produce good results in spite of waiting till the last minute. And maybe it doesn't have to be with that much pressure. So I think a lot of work with self concept can help with procrastination, becoming a person who does things early, finishes stuff early, allows enough time to get the job done, can be a really powerful part of developing your self-concept of someone who is not a procrastinator.
Yeah, I like that. Getting it
Yeah.
done in spite of myself waiting. Thank you.
Right? Like it doesn't need to be that hard. We don't need to make it that difficult for ourselves, and we can make a different choice. It's like acknowledging that we have that agency over our thoughts and like our patterns and what we've been doing. Yeah, great question. Thank you so much. Anyone else have anything that they wanted to coach on or work through today?
Hi.
Hi.
So I have like a really hard time sticking with some of these plans, especially say with doing some of the work with the calendar or making some of these plans. It's very, very hard, and I think sometimes you even get more overwhelmed trying to like adhere to some type of a schedule.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about what is coming up for you when like you're sitting down with your to-do list. Are there thoughts there already that like this is hard?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So right from the start, you're telling yourself a story that it's hard.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think is causing that? Just is it like a sheer number of things that you have on your plate? Is it the perceived difficulty level? Tell me about some of the stuff that's contributing to it feeling like it's hard.
I'd say it's definitely a little bit of both of those things. And yeah, and I think like an underlying fear of not being able to finish the task ahead or accomplish some type of a goal.
Yeah, yeah. So can you come up with some examples of like in the past that you've been able to finish stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like our brain on autopilot likes to offer us the times that we didn't finish stuff, right? All the proof that like we can't do it. But if we ask ourselves to come up with the times that we actually were able to follow through and we were able to finish things and we were able to stick to our schedule, there's also proof there for that.
Yeah.
That can just be like a starting point. And then I guess my next question is, when you do your calendar, a lot of times we like to maybe be a little unrealistic with what we can get done in a day. So, when you lay out your calendar, is that something that feels real and good to you? Or is it something where like you're trying to pack in every single to do on like 3 days in your week?
Yeah, it's definitely striving to be a little too perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, that's okay. That's normal too, right? Like, we start off with packing everything in, and then it's like, oh, wait, no, I can't do all this stuff. And I think when we have that realization, a lot of times we can make it mean like I'm terrible at following my calendar. But that's not at all what it means, right? Like that's not the truth. That just means that, okay, we have data that we can't do 25 things in one day. Now I'm going to take that data and apply it to the next time. Like I said, it's like a practice. And I feel like we beat ourselves up a lot when we put our stuff on our calendar and then we end up not being able to do it. But really what we need to do with that information is just make some shifts down the road. That way we could do it differently next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like becoming the person who follows their calendar. It doesn't just like happen automatically. It's like, okay, it's a little bit of trial and error. Like this is not going to work today. All right, so let me shift it and see what happens tomorrow when I schedule it a little bit differently. And also, I think some of the practices with like calming the nervous system before you even sit down to calendar could possibly help. Because if you're already in an amped up state, then yeah, like looking at your to-do list, even putting it on your calendar might seem like it's not doable. So don't skip the part of feeling your feelings of whatever that is that's coming up for you, the overwhelm feeling.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Another part of like the calendaring, which has been hard for me, is the consistency of it. And it feels very much, and I guess this is some of the judgment towards myself too, but there are times when it's been so effective and other times where perhaps it's like without some of the calming levels as well, and without like just with the sheer magnitude and number of things that are going on, that it's so hard to get back on track to do something like begin calendaring more consistent.
Yeah. And I think that if we let it, if we allow it, it can totally knock us off track, right? But it's like, okay, I am going to recommit to this. And there's nothing that says that you can't just like do it again. And it's not like you're starting over, like there's no going backwards here. So there's nothing to feel bad or feel guilty about. So if those feelings are coming up, you can feel them too, but acknowledge that like it's okay. Like there is no negative impact. Like what happened, and we can just start again. We can make another decision and start again right now. And there are going to be times maybe when calendaring doesn't work for you and doesn't feel good to you. And with everything in my work, like I offer some tools that could be considered best practices, but I always invite everyone to honor their sovereignty, like honor what works for you and what doesn't, but always think about, okay, is this getting the result I want? And if it's not getting the result you want, be willing to make some shifts.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Arthi. Anyone else have any questions or anything else I can coach you through? Nothing for today. Well, I always invite you to, keep up with what I'm doing in social media. And I do love doing these workshops now. I've been doing them, for the past 3 months or so. So this is a really fun opportunity for us to be live together and do kind of like group coaching. So thank you very much. Jennifer, hi, thank you. And just wanted to say that if you love everything that you've learned here today and you're ready to take things like this and implement it and take it even deeper in service of creating a life of integrity that feels really good to live, we do have some spots open for one-on-one coaching. Some of my current clients are here, which I totally love. Thank you so much for showing up, everybody. And having a life coach really means having someone in your corner who's going to show up weekly to work with you on solutions to your issues. You have established processes for helping you get results. You could cut the time it takes to achieve your results completely in half, and it provides like a container, a non-judgmental container for you to express whatever you need to say. I think that was one of the most fun things for me, is that I ended up saying some things in my own coaching sessions, which I've never taken the opportunity to say out loud before. So that is really important and valuable in and of itself. And also, like, coaches help you recognize your blind spots and finally shift some of these patterns that we're talking about, right? With their library of tools that they can use to help you. So I work with women for 3 months at a time where we'll meet hourly for 1 hour on a weekly basis on a video call, just like we're doing now, except for it'll be you. And during these calls, we'll talk about your goals, your dreams, and all of the stuff that feels like it's getting in the way of you getting what you want. So it's 1 hour a week dedicated just to you. So if you are interested in any of this, I am going to pop the link to book a consultation into the chat box there. Everyone. Perfect. Yeah, so, if you wanted to book a consultation with me, I would love to chat with you and see if we're a good fit to work together. It'll just be an hour-long call. I'll hear about what you're looking to create in your life, and then we'll see if we're a good fit to work together. And I just want to say that even getting on the consultation is like a really great opportunity to just like see what it's all about and have an hour dedicated to like understanding what your specific blocks are. Coming out of that consultation, like you can totally shift just with that one free call. So it's a really fun experience, and I hope that you guys will take me up on that. So before I head out, I just want to check here and see if there is anything else. Does anyone have anything else? You can totally unmute yourself to chat or type it in the chat box.
Could we talk for like a few minutes about Overwhelm in like the COVID era with like maybe as women like obligations plus COVID and the world?
Yeah, totally. So what are your thoughts on that? What's coming up for you when you think about everything that's going on in the world?
It's really hard to I found like recently it's been really hard to make any plans for the future. It feels very paralyzing because there's so much happening around, and uh, it necessarily means more time at home with family and feeling like a lot more of the familial obligations to do certain things and to be like fully present. And so it's like been a constant battle uh, between like just so many different obligations and like a complete uncertainty of like what the future looks like.
Yeah, that can make it really scary to even like attempt to plan for what's going to happen next. And so when you think of what you do want to plan for the future, like are you getting down into the specifics of what could possibly happen? Like how far down the road are you taking yourself into like, oh, this could end up really, really, really bad?
I feel like it really varies, but most commonly it's just like a complete, I don't know, I really don't know how else to put it, but a complete inability to plan for the future or like
Yeah.
really plan outside of like just the next few days. So that becomes really hard on a career or even a bigger life level to kind of plan for what are some of these goals.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to offer that, you don't necessarily need to have a 5-year plan right now, and I think that if you do have some goals and some longer term objectives, even just taking them and breaking them down into, okay, what am I going to do today to serve that goal, might give you a little bit more focus than looking out like the 5 and 10 year vision and say, okay, this is what I want to create, but all of these things are going on and I'm not sure how this is all going to work out or like what I can even do. If you like bring it in really close and say, okay, these are like the values that I'm working towards. Maybe not even like that big goal that you specific goal, but like here are my values. Here's how I'm going to live those values today. And of course, me living my values will serve my 5 and 10 year goal, right? Because most of the time we have goals that are aligned with what our values are. So I think bringing it back down to like the day-to-day working with our values and seeing what am I doing today to serve that can be a helpful practice.
Thanks. I like that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? I'm just curious, how that lands with you. Because does it feel a little bit more manageable?
Yeah, and I like the notion of the goals being more value aligned instead of achievements. or milestones, that feels a lot more resonant for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then talk to me about like being present with your family in this time. What's coming up for you around that?
Yeah, I think it's just like, of course, due to the proximity and stuff, and like being home all the time, I think this manifests. I've spoken with a number of my friends as well, and this is manifesting so differently, especially for people with like younger children or children of all ages and things. And yeah, it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. And this is a lot of what you talk about like bringing wholeness and bringing your whole self somewhere, but yeah, it's hard to be your whole self 100% of the time in 100% of the places, and I feel like that's what that's what working from home and quarantine and kind of COVID is almost like, that's what the world right now is almost demanding,
Mm.
demanding of people. And I think especially it's very challenging for women who have to do a lot and be a lot and be completely present all the time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that the current situation is creating or giving us the opportunity for a lot to come up, both in ourselves and within our relationships. So I think that first, for the relationship piece, like we definitely have to remember that we can't control what other people are thinking, saying, or doing, right? All that we have control over is ourselves and whether we're going to respond or react. And part of showing up whole is honoring when you need to like go inward, right? We don't always need to show up whole outwardly. We can show up whole for ourselves to honor that wholeness. So there are going to be times when maybe you choose to not have a confrontation with a family member, or pull back from a discussion that's draining your energy. That is honoring your wholeness as much as expressing your thoughts and ideas. So it doesn't always need to be an outward expression. It can be more of an inward expression and acknowledgement that, like, all right, this isn't serving me to engage in this way. It's okay to disengage, and then maybe you go back at a different time with a different conversation. um, and then also having boundaries around what we do and what we don't take on. I think that we obviously all feel a lot of pressure to do certain things as leaders in our community, in our household, but honoring the energy that we do and don't have is important, because how can we create results or change out in the world or for our families and take care of everything if we don't have that for ourselves, right? And self-care, amazing. Don't love the way that it's presented sometimes, like it's not about spa days and massages. It's about boundaries. It's about doing the things that you said you were going to do. It's about taking care of yourself internally. So and if part of your self-care is massages and spa days, amazing, but I'm just saying that that's not the only way that it looks, right? It's also protecting the energy and maybe doing ritual around how we honor our inner selves.
Thanks.
Like, anyone else have anything they want to talk about, or anything that they want to talk about relating to what Arthi brought up? I think this is a really good conversation piece. If the current world circumstances are feeling really overwhelming, which I know probably all of us have felt it at some point over these last few months. Okay, amazing. Well, I did want to thank you all again so much for coming and joining me for this workshop. Like I said, I do have spots open for one-on-one coaching. If you wanted to sign up for a consultation, you can do that at the link I dropped in the chat box there. Or you can always just drop me an email and we'll find a time that works for everybody. And again, thank you very much. If you have any questions following up from this class, shoot me an email. I'd be happy to answer them. And let me know your thoughts.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of the Sunday.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.